And today I'm going to be talking about how Lady Gaga, who is one of the most polarizing figures in the music industry, how she uses the power of polarity to create just that. Because guess what? Neutrals and fence sitters are the kiss of death for your business. Would you rather have 5% haters, 5% lovers, and 90% fence sitters, neutrals? Or would you rather have 50% haters and 50% lovers? And I know what the obvious answer is, because you also know what the obvious answer is. And the answer is you would rather have 50% haters and 50% lovers, simply because that gives you a bigger pool of people who have the potential to buy from you. And this can only happen if you use the dark, sexy magic of polarity. And today I'm going to be talking about how Lady Gaga, who is one of the most polarizing figures in the music industry, how she uses the power of polarity to create just that. Because guess what? Neutrals and fence sitters are the kiss of death for your business, because they don't go out to the world, they don't talk about you, they don't take the decision, they just sit there and judge you for, I don't even know what they do. So you don't want neutrals. You want either haters or lovers. And yes, I know it's kind of hard to imagine that you would want haters, but I will talk about how haters help your business too. And I'm really excited about this day 5 of the 30 Day of Persuasion, where I am going to tell you all about how Lady Gaga does it and how you can too. Let's talk about Lady Gaga. But before we talk about Lady Gaga, let's talk about polarity. What is polarity and why polarity works so well? Polarity is a thoughtful, purposeful, planned, strategic decision to express an opinion or do something that is not expected, that is expected to create a divide. Now, I don't mean that you need to be polarizing just for the sake of it, but the reality is that polarizing content, polarizing people, polarizing opinions always will get more attention, because it provides that jolt to our senses, that disruption that I always talk about, right? So that disruption is something that is very quickly achievable when you are polarizing. Now, I'm not going to pull things out of my ass and share with you, or do this and you can be polarizing. Instead, I'm going to give you specific examples from the way Lady Gaga does it and the way that you can do it in your business. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to read out something that Lady Gaga said in her interview with Yahoo CEO Marissa Mayer. She said, bullying really stays with you with your whole life. It never really goes away. And I know you're using words like superstar and most Googled and billions of YouTube views, but I was never the winner. I was always the loser. And that still stays with me. And do I want to stick it to anybody? No, I just want to make music. Now, what is this? This may not seem to you as polarizing, because this seems to you like someone who's just talking about a difficult childhood or being bullied as a child. But you have to understand that this is someone who people look up to in the celebrity culture, talking about your vulnerabilities, talking about your weaknesses, talking about feeling inadequate is not common and is only recently started happening. So talking about something that makes you feel, that makes you seem less than a goddess, it is a polarizing. When you step out and do that, now we know that at a psychological level, when you express vulnerability, when you express like you are more human, you're not perfect, we know it is relatable. We know that for a fact. So not only does that showing your vulnerability, showing your human side, showing your not perfect, not goddess-like status, not only is it effective because we know that in psychology, people relate more to people who are less than perfect, but more importantly, it is not expected from celebrities. People want to keep their, it's changing now recently. Jennifer Lawrence is another great example of someone who's consciously tried to change it, who's consciously tried to share how imperfect she is and how human she is. But it wasn't really common to break that goddess-like status on purpose. So we know that it works. So if you are in an industry where it is not common, go on and do it. It might turn a lot of people against you because they'll be like, oh, that's not professional. You shouldn't be doing that. We shouldn't be bringing personal life into business. And that's all fine and dandy. Let them do their thing. It works. So whatever the norm in your industry is when it comes to sharing personal information, when you go against it, when you share something else, it will always bring people closer to you. So that is the first thing and that line has made me, I feel closer to Lady Gaga, and I'm not a music listener. I'm not a music person, but I feel after reading this, I feel like I'm closer to that person, even though I have no idea what this is. Yay! Okay. So let's do this. Before I go on into the next point, I am also going to ask you to please share this broadcast with someone. This is going to be really interesting. I promise I'm not going to read any more lines from Lady Gaga's interviews, but I will be giving a breakdown of how she uses polarity. So if you want to get more information on this, and if you want someone else who can use a little bit more polarity in their brand or in their life or in their business, please go on and share this because I promise it will be awesome. Okay. Point number 2, a giant FU to the celebrity culture. So again, not just in terms of vulnerability, but there is another interview of Lady Gaga, which I'm not going to quote, I promise, where she specifically says, and she literally takes a stab at every celebrity out there. So even though that interview went viral and it was really talked about a lot about as sharing the human side of Gaga, I think there is a huge element to that where she's taking a stab. She's giving a giant FU to the entire celebrity culture. So just a few lines from that. She says, I don't like selling perfumes. I'm not a money-making machine. I don't want to shake hands and smile. I'm not going to just take a picture with you. I'm not going to that event just because you asked me to. I don't want to be that person who second guesses everything, who checks everything before she posts it. She's literally taking a stab at every single one of her contemporaries because that is exactly what they do, right? So it doesn't really matter whether she lives up to it or not. That's not the point. The point is when you're giving an interview and you're so vocal about denouncing all the things that every one of your contemporaries do, they're selling perfumes, they are money-making machines, they go to every event, they shake hands and they smile and they take pictures and they go to events that they hate, all of those things that all of her contemporaries, and maybe she herself does too. But here's the fact, when you are vocal about something, when you are so vocal and so in your face about an industry norm, people hate you and they love you. So the reason that that interview is so viral and that it evoked such a massive emotional response is not just because she's showing a human side. It's also because she's giving a giant finger to everyone in the industry. So if there are certain norms in your industry, if there are certain things, and I do that all the damn time, this is what I live for. When I start a webinar, I start by saying this webinar will not have this and this and this and this and this. And I literally spell out the things that every one of my competitors do, that others in my industry do, and that is my way of giving a giant ass FU to every one of my contemporaries. Now, I might be caught doing some of those things. I am going to be the first to admit that. I might be caught doing some of those things at some point, but that is not the point here. The point is that as a rule, you have established your value system, which is against everything that everyone in your industry is doing, right? So this is such a powerful way of drawing the line and saying us versus them. We are the ones who do this, and they are the ones who do this other shit. I'm not with them. So figure out what is it in your industry where okay, what is it in your industry where you actually can draw a line, set up your value system and spell it out. Spell it out. It is going to piss people off, but it will also create super rabid fans because they will trust you and they will respect you for your opinion and for your balls. They will respect you for your balls. And this is why I want to highly encourage you to do this. And more importantly, only leaders have such strong opinions. Followers don't have such strong opinions. So if you want to establish yourself as a leader in your industry, in any industry, you want to do that. It may seem uncomfortable to you. It may seem like, what am I doing? Why am I turning people against myself? But the reality is, if you want to be established as a leader, if you want to be seen as a leader, you will need to piss off certain people. And honestly, only leaders have strong opinions. Followers don't really have opinions. Followers just follow. Right? Okay. Give me on a scale of oh, your perfection. Oh, thank you. Okay. So tell me, how are you liking this breakdown so far? Do you think you can adopt it to your business? Are you thinking, oh, that's Gaga, she can do it, I never can do it? Or are you thinking, oh my God, I can totally see myself doing that, and I can totally see why this works? Either way, let me know in the comments so I actually know what's going on, what you're thinking about this, because I'm just, curious, because come on, I'm curious. Okay, point number 3, which I'm going to talk about because I love that. I was looking for a stake to wear as a headband today because I wanted to make the point about Lady Gaga, but then I realized, A, I don't have a stake, B, it'll probably be frozen, and C, it'll drip on my head while I'm doing the broadcast, and D, I'm not really Lady Gaga, so you'll just have to live with this borrowed headband that I borrowed from my daughter. Just deal with it. Anyway, point number 3 is labeling your bride, labeling your tribe. Now, this is not necessarily an example of polarity, but Lady Gaga does that, and I know that a lot of entrepreneurs do that too, but I'll tell you why this is so important, why this ties into this whole concept of polarizing. What has led to most of the wars in the world, what has led to most of the unrest in the world is an us versus them mentality, right? So not only has Lady Gaga, she calls her fans little monsters, not only has she created a tribe, a group of people who follow her, her fans, she's also given them a label, and she also expects them to react and act in a certain way. So she has taken the concept of her polarity of us versus them, of how she's different. She's taken it from her personal level to and extended it even to her fans. And I think this is such a beautiful thing to watch, because there are a lot of fans who like to dress up the way their celebrities dress up, but her fans also act the way she expects them to act. So she's given them a label, and we know from psychology, from labeling theory, that when you give someone a label, when you give someone a label of good boy, that person is going to act like a good boy, because they need to stay consistent with that label. So when she chooses a label, instead of just choosing a label like, I don't know, some random ass label, when she chooses the label of little monsters, they're expected to stay consistent with that label and therefore act like monsters, which in turn is consistent with her brand and her positioning and the polarizing image that she's created for herself. I think it is bloody genius. Okay. Next point. So that was point number 3. Next point, which is one of my favorites, and I talked about this also in the Master Persuader series that I did. And the distance that most celebrities, and not just, by the way, celebrities, also entrepreneurs, the moment you get rich and famous, you create a distance. You create a distance from your fans and from your followers. That distance is your opportunity. So whenever you're selling something, whenever you're going out into an industry, whatever you're doing, even if you're starting up, I don't know, a music band, you have to understand that the distance that other bands, other musicians have created with their fans, that distance is your opportunity. Because most people, as soon as they become rich and famous, they stop answering their emails, they stop engaging with their fans, they keep a distance. There will always be 1, 2, or 10 assistants in between. They have these, you never get to touch them. You never get to reach out to them. Lady Gaga, on the other hand, again, a giant FU. She has taken that distance that all those celebrities have created, and she has bridged it. She has taken advantage of that distance. So if you see her, she randomly interacts with her fans. She's created that, she's bridged that distance. Obviously, being such a high giant celebrity, she cannot bridge it completely, but she's bridged it so much more than everyone else, and especially the celebrities from the last generation, from the generation that came before her. Madonna, as an example, who is considered more elusive, as because people consistently compare her to Madonna. But if you compare her distance with her fans versus Madonna's distance with her fans, the difference is huge and massive. And again, this is a way of using polarity. Polarity doesn't always mean using big words or giving a giant finger to everyone else. It is also doing things that are not expected in a certain industry, that people are not used to doing, especially when it comes to access to you. So if you are in a market, whether you're just starting out or you have grown up to that point, make sure that the distance that everyone else has created between them and their fans and followers, you take advantage of that distance and bridge it, because that is your opportunity. Because the moment you get some sort of a celebrity status, people want to hang out with you. They somehow feel that you are more exciting, even though, I don't know, I feel like they still are the same people, right? But we just have this mindset that they are somehow special, that they are somehow more, I don't know, more ethereal. I don't know. So people will want to be closer to you. And if you want to take the example of Lady Gaga, try to let them come closer, because that is also one way of creating polarity, because everyone will now know, oh my God, she is so accessible. She's so close to her fans, which is unlike what others are doing, right? Okay, last point, which is kind of my favorite. Yes, Taylor Swift does that too. Taylor Swift also kind of got into this whole being more relatable and being more human, but she's only started doing it recently. Yes, it is actually scary how well it works. And that's why I said a lot of the polarity elements that we're talking about, people have used these to create unrest and start wars and commit genocides. We know that for a fact. But what's important is for you to know that we can always use it for the good of everything. The last point that I'm going to talk about is about the meat dress. Now, people think that the reason Lady Gaga is so polarizing is because she wears those meat dresses and those outrageous kind of hats and hairstyles and the music and all. But that's not it. Because if people come to expect you to be outrageous, then it stops being polarizing. The reason Lady Gaga creates such polarity, creates such stir everywhere she goes, is because she uses something that in psychology we call the expectancy violation theory. Every time she shows up, she does something that is unexpected. So she violates your expectancy. You're expecting to see something and you see something else. So when people expected her to be a star and be all surrounded by people and wearing this massive party gown, like the fancy ball gown like everyone else is wearing, she shows up in a meat dress. When they expect her to be outrageous and wearing all of those hair gears and weird things, she shows up in a jeans and a t-shirt, right? So it's not that she's outrageous. Instead, it's that she violates their expectations. And that expectancy violation, yes, there are two distinct things that happen when you violate expectancies. Either people will love you or they will hate you, right? So that is what polarity means. They will either love it, they will love their expectations being violated, or they will absolutely hate their expectations being violated. But this is what you need to know. If someone is trying to create a stir by being outrageous, it's not going to work forever. The reason it works is because you consistently try to violate the expectations of people. The moment you stop doing that, it stops working. Right? If everyone knows that every time they see you you will be in something outrageous, weird hair or weird something or weird dress or something, then it stops working. It is not polarizing anymore because it becomes a part of your brand. The reason Lady Gaga still manages to create a stir every time is not because she's outrageous. It's because she uses expectancy violation theory. And that's what I would recommend you guys do too. Not the meat dress, even though I looked for a steak, but try to keep them guessing. Try to keep them thinking as to how you can violate their expectations. Because because that is what makes you interesting. That is what makes you polarizing. That is what makes people coming back for more and more. If they know that it is always going to be outrageous, it's going to stop working after a while. And I see a lot of people take inspiration from Lady Gaga, and I see them doing the hair and the dress and the way they dress up and the way, and unfortunately, it looks jaded after a while because they're not keeping the fans on their toes. They're not playing with your brain anymore. They just fall into that rut. Whereas she does that all the time. When they expect her to do something completely outrageous, she shows up in a t-shirt and jeans. She's done that many, many times. And that is why it works so beautifully. So there you have it, the many different ways Lady Gaga uses the dark, sexy magic of polarity and keeping people on their toes and keeping people second guessing or guessing. And that is really what makes her so interesting. So if you take nothing away from this, if you're just here for Gaga and not really for me, if you take nothing away from this, just take this advice. Find out what your industry is used to hearing. Find out what your industry is used to doing over and over again, and then do the exact opposite. Or find out the things that your industry has accepted as norms for whatever reason and call them out on it. Call them out on it over and over and over again. So as an example, the way I have done this, and I've done this many, many times, but one example that comes into my head right now is when we did SOL Live in Madrid. It was kind of a business retreat in the sense that it was an all-inclusive package. People came in for 2 days. We paid for the hotels. We paid for the meals. They stayed with us. We worked on their launches. And I specifically called out all the other typical business retreats where I said, this is not going to be an event where you will be sitting, on a beach towel or holding hands and singing Kumbaya for 2 hours and holding the vision of your $1 million launch. And then the vision still remains a vision. So I'm calling specifically out on things that are happening that people are used to hearing, that people accept as normal in a certain industry, and then I will go on and call them out. So this is, again, from a psychological perspective, this is known as the parity switch. So in the mass persuasion method, I talk about parity switch, and the biggest example of parity switch is figuring out what is the norm in your industry, figuring out the zig in your industry so you can zag. If you don't know what the zig in your industry is, how will you ever zag, right? So figure out the norm in your industry and then figure out how you are different. You need to be absolutely clear on that, how your values are different, how your experience is different, how the outcomes that you promise are different, how is dealing with you different than dealing with everyone else. Whatever those minor small differences are, spell them out and then start using them in your communication. When you do webinars, when you write copy, when you write social media posts, when you do videos, constantly draw parallels between how you are different and how everyone else in your industry or your competitors are different. Now, parity switch is super, 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 super powerful because human beings are naturally in the habit of making comparisons. Whether we are trying to decide what dress to wear to a new party, or what lipstick shade to wear, or to who to go on a date with. If you had that many options, congratulations. But we're always doing comparisons in our head. So your job as a persuader is to make sure that you facilitate that comparison. Because if you think that laying out your benefits or making great music, like in Lady Gaga's case, making great music or just putting together a great music video is enough for you to move forward, unfortunately, I don't have good news for you, because that is not true. This is not enough. You need to constantly remind people why you are the better option in every single situation, why you're a better option when it comes to the music, why you're a better option when it comes to the experience, why you're a better option when it comes to being the person. Oh, and one last point that I forgot to make about Lady Gaga is also the way she uses her brand and her music and her songs for advocacy. So none of those things that she does, none of the music, so the Born This Way, for example, is not just a song anymore. Instead, she's taken that song and turned it into a movement, right? So that is what I mean. Every single thing that none of her contemporaries are doing, at least when she started doing it, where you take a song, take a simple lyric, take a simple dance video, music video, and turn it into a massive movement fueled by hundreds of thousands of people. That is really what Parity Switch is all about. I talk a lot more about Parity Switch and how you can use Parity Switch in your music, in your videos, in your business, in your copy, in your social media posts, in everything that you do. And if you're interested in finding out all about the Parity Switch and all the other 8 psychological switches that all need to be activated if you want people to say yes, yes, yes to you at all times, then please go check out my book. It is an international best-selling book when it comes to sales and selling and consumer behavior. It is now available in paperback. Please go on and get your copy. And once you get a copy, you also get access to $800 worth of bonuses, which is so awesome. So the book is only $14, but you get $800 worth of bonuses. So please go check it out. Tara is going to drop the link. It's bit.ly/mpm book, but we're also going to drop the link for you. Please go check out the book, or you can just go to Amazon and search for Mass Persuasion Method. It is a great book. Honestly, it's awesome. Hey YouTube, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And also go check out my book on Amazon.com. The book is only $14 and you earn $800 worth of bonuses. I'm not really Gaga, but I try. And I promise the book will be worth it. Actually, no, it won't be worth it. It'll be worth so much more than $14. So please go on, check it out. And I will see you tomorrow with the next session of 30 Days of Persuasion.